For some analysis, I'm joined now from Sydney by Nasser Mashni. He's the president of Australia Palestine Advocacy Network. Nasser, thank you so much for speaking to us on this news hour. What do you make of this alleged violation that's taken place in Lebanon? Because for years, of course, there has been the tension. There have been strikes back and forth between Hezbollah and Israel. Many are hoping that this ceasefire, only coming into effect on Wednesday, is going to hold not just for the 60 days, but for the long term as well?
Look, in the first instance, we have to doubt anything that comes from the Israeli lie machine, the Ministry for Disinformation that is Tel Aviv. They have lied for 418 days now in Gaza and for the entirety of their existence. What we do know is that Israel went into Lebanon to quote unquote finish the job. They had a desire to dismantle and disarm Hezbollah, and they were met with fierce resistance, and they failed miserably. They failed miserably. They've failed miserably to advance into southern Lebanon militarily on the ground. They took heavy casualties. They failed to stop the rockets from entering Israel into the main cities. In fact, as we know, a military base was hit. Benjamin Netanyahu's own home was hit. In the end, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli terror forces there, I think, decided that they knew that they cannot inflict the same sort of genocidal damage that they have in Gaza and took a strategic, quote unquote, retreat. Now, the reality is Hezbollah has suffered some very, very serious damage with its leadership, but also its military capability has been degraded. But I think on balance, this has been a very much a stalemate.
And Nasser, do you think that Israel will now regroup in terms of its military and reinforce some of those soldiers in Gaza, particularly in the north, because they, of course, say that they still want to achieve their war goals in Gaza. But as we know, many were hoping that a ceasefire in Lebanon could actually open the door again to talks for a ceasefire in Gaza. An Egyptian delegation is heading to Israel with the hopes of restarting negotiations. But for more than a year, we've had talks, a lot of talk, but no real action or peace.
Well, there's been no real action. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of obfuscation by Benjamin Netanyahu. As we know, he has no interest in peace. What he has an interest in is all of the Palestinian land with as few Palestinians as possible. He is on a genocidal mission. There has been many, at least 3 serious ceasefire opportunities that he has said no to. It has never been about the hostages. It's never been about Hamas. It's about him staying in power with this fascist right-wing coalition that he's cobbled together that has some of the most fascist genocidal human beings that the earth has seen since World War II and the actions that happened in Europe there. He's doing this to stay out of jail. On top of that, he's got these messianic settlers that want to cleanse, quote unquote, all of historic Palestine, to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza into the Sinai and into the rest of the Arab world or the rest of the world. There can be no peace with these people. What we need is the international community to come together and do what they did in South Africa, end apartheid there and end apartheid in Palestine.
But it's so, this call that you make for the international community to come together, in the last year and a bit, we've seen more countries speak out for Palestinians, for the humanitarian and human rights of Palestinians in Gaza. But it's been a very slow process. And sanctions are not even something that many of those countries are even talking about. In South Africa, it took years for that to happen, eventually starving the government before they made the decision to end apartheid. How long then is it going to take for the international community to band together to really impose sanctions or take real action against Israel for this to end?
Well, we can, as Palestinians, we wake up every day with hope and expectation that tomorrow will be better. We cannot give in to despair. This is exactly what Israel and its allies want. The reality of the fight against apartheid in South Africa didn't happen in a day, a week, or a month. We can look back now with a history book and look over what happened. It took decades. It's taking decades here in Palestine, but we have made strong advances. You know, as we know, Spain is not allowing American warships to stop there. Spain has recognized Palestine. Colombia has stopped coal exports into Israel, and they used to supply 60% of Israel's coal. Many countries, now almost 150 countries, recognize Palestine. Almost 75% of the world's population recognizes the state of Palestine. Increasingly, people are realizing what Israel actually is. And peak Israel was October 6, 2023. In years from now, perhaps a decade from now, we're going to look back and go, that was Palestine's South Africa moment.
Hopefully that is a moment that will come sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.